Hey, it's Jen. Have you ever listened to one of the episodes and thought to yourself, oh, I wish I could leave a response to that, or I wish I could leave feedback or ask a question? Did you know there's actually a way to do that in Spotify now? I know, it's super cool. So if you head over to Spotify and search for Java with Jen podcast or Java with Jen Hearing God's Voice for Everyday Life, you may have to search all of it. And then you go and check out my most recent episodes. There are polls and Q&A options that you can weigh in on, and I can connect with you that way over here on this platform. I usually use Instagram to connect with you guys, but now with this feature from Spotify, it's a super cool way to engage with the content of each episode and talk to me directly. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. So go head over to my latest episodes on Spotify, and let's do that right now. Y'all, when I was a young mom, I remember praying and begging the Lord to give me a way to make money while I was raising my kids. Somehow it felt like this magical dynamic that I wished could happen but had no idea how to make it happen. Well, I feel like, especially with 2020, mompreneurs are on the rise. Women pursuing business from behind their laptops. And Melanie Mitro is one of those who accidentally stumbled into something she did not know she was going to be so passionate about, and has turned it into a massive business to where her husband was able to quit his 9-to-5 and he works with her. So in today's episode, she shares tips and pointers for any of you who've ever thought to yourself, I want to monetize my passion. I want to work from home. I'd love to pursue what I love while raising my kids. If that's you, then you're going to want to listen up. She shares a lot of wisdom in this episode, and she even shares how she tackled the challenges of a husband who was not supportive in the beginning. So listen up in the life hack segment. She also shares her little tip for how she gets everything done at home. You're going to want to listen to this episode, and you're going to want to share it with a friend. Listen, it's 2020, guys. Anything is possible, and especially in the digital sphere. E-commerce is the largest leg of business happening right now. And so this is the time to consider if you've ever considered starting your own hustle. All right, listen up. Let's start that intro music. Hi, and you're listening to Java with Jen with your host, Jenilee Samuel. Okay, well, thanks you guys for tuning in today. I'm super excited for today's guest, who is Melanie Mitro of Chic Influencer. And I met her on Instagram, actually, after having listened to one of her podcast episodes, and I threw it up on my stories, and then we just somehow made a connection through Instagram. And so she's been such a sweetheart to answer some questions of mine and then to make time to do an episode this morning. So I'm going to be picking her brain. She's a business entrepreneur. She's a mom and a wife. So the challenges she carries are similar to a lot of the challenges you guys are familiar with. So that's why I wanted to have her on the show. So thank you, Melanie, for taking the time to join us and share with us your wealth of wisdom on this topic.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Okay, so I was telling you that I think I found your podcast browsing for business podcasts for work. And when I threw it up on stories and tagged you, I was so surprised that you responded. But then you were such a sweetheart, and I could tell that you really love what you do because of how you were just so supportive and helpful. I was like, okay, this is someone who really loves what she does. She doesn't just do it for the paycheck.
Right. I do. I really do love it.
Okay. Tell our listeners a little bit of what exactly you do, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So, oh my gosh, my journey is kind of wild and crazy. So let me just give you like the shortened version, but I actually have a degree. My undergrad is in psychology. So I went to school and I sort of wanted to be a therapist, a counselor. That was kind of the path that I was going down. And after I did my undergrad, I knew I had to go on and get my master's degree. And so while I was working with kids on the autism spectrum, but also kids with behavioral disorders, I was getting my master's degree in special education. And then during that time, my husband and I were really beginning to think about starting our family. And I was very vocal about wanting to be a stay-at-home mom. So we were working really hard to save every single penny that we could to, grow that savings so that when the time was right, we could make that call. I would be able to walk away from my job. So I continued to get my master's degree just in case, so I had that to fall back on so that I knew that I could actually get a job that would support our family if need be. And I finished my master's degree. We had our second little boy, and I quit. I quit my full-time job and became an official stay-at-home mom. And it was about 5 months after having Bryce, who is our youngest, that I was having just a hard time bouncing back from having kids. I was really struggling with the postpartum journey. A lot of it was weight loss related. Just I was struggling with my confidence and emotionally. And then I think adding that transition to not really having a job anymore. And, stay-at-home mom life was great. I never want to complain about it, but I really was missing that connection to other people that I got from working. Yeah. And so I posted on Facebook, so crazy because I'm a very private person. You would not know that now. But in 2011, very private. I only would share when we would go on a vacation or we had one of our boys or it was an anniversary or, just like a special moment. I wasn't somebody that was just constantly making updates, but I posted on Facebook about eating celery and trying to lose weight. And somebody that I went to high school, my husband went to high school with, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think I can help you." And so I was introduced to a company called Beachbody at that time, which I had never heard of network marketing, direct sales. I'd never heard of this at-home fitness programs. I kind of heard of P90X and Insanity through infomercials, but I'd never done the workout. So after sort of looking at her Facebook page and the fact that she had this amazing transformation, she had 2 kids and she was a lot like myself. I related to her story. I was like, sign me up, tell me what I need to do. I was like, I'm in. I was definitely at my wit's end. And so I would put Landon and Bryce down for a nap and I would go down to our basement and I would work out every afternoon. And so I fell in love with the community because there was this Facebook group and everybody would talk in there about their workouts. They would share nutrition and recipes and meal plans. And so I really started to connect with the ladies in there, a lot of young moms. And so I found friendship there and community. And then for me, it was nutrition. So I had a very bad view of dieting and food. And I had never really understood the concept of fueling your body with good quality nutrition. It was very much like low fat, fat free, smart ones, 100-calorie pack. I learned the value of nutrition, reading your labels and pairing foods together. And so I was just, anybody that would listen, I was like, have you ever heard of clean eating before? And so I was like starting to educate people around me of nutrition while I was kind of going through this process. And so people kept saying, you should be a coach. You should do what I do. And I kept saying no because I didn't feel qualified. I wasn't a fitness expert. I wasn't a nutritionist. I didn't have any kind of certifications. But, from understanding the business, it wasn't about that. It was more like you're supporting other people on their journey and sharing what you've been through. And so I did. It was July of 2011. I decided to go for it. I signed up with Beachbody as a coach. And I started a blog. So my business started with a blog called Committed to Getting Fit. Okay. And every week I would show up and I would do recipes, my weekly meal plan. I would talk to other women about getting your kids to eat healthy foods, how to handle traveling and late night snacking, like all the things that women struggle with. I would blog my story and I was kind of taking women on the journey with me and it started to take off. My blog started to really catch some momentum and my Facebook started to really grow and I was building my Instagram and I was kind of building this business in like the cracks of mom life. And the cool part about it is I noticed that there was actually a significant business opportunity with Beachbody. So I started to lean into business and strategy and building my team. And so I have grown this incredible business over the past 8 years with Beachbody. And I've just learned so much I love public speaking. I have podcasts now. I do live events. And so I just started another company last year called Chic Influencer. So now I mentor women who want to grow and scale a business. And that was kind of how our connection was. Like you were telling me business ideas. And that is my passion, and you can definitely hear it in my voice. So I was introduced to business through direct sales, and now I still do that, but I really do. I'm a business mentor, and I love it. Love teaching people strategy and marketing and storytelling and all of that stuff. So here we are today. It's like wild. It's the wildest journey of life, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
That's so cool. So you went from aspiring counselor to technically you're still kind of counseling, just on a different platform with a different voice. You know what I mean? Different target. So you're still using your gifts. What I see on your platforms now is you are like no nonsense when it comes to discipline and strategizing and putting the time in where it's required. So how did you make that? Because a lot of my listeners are moms and they are juggling kids, and I mean, when kids are young, as they get older, it gets a little easier to have side gigs and side hustles. But when they're tiny, it's like you can't control your schedule very well, because they do. And so how did you make that journey from tending to your kids and working in the cracks to building a business intentionally without feeling like you're neglecting the first?
It's not an easy, I'm going to walk you through the progress. I may make it sound easy, but it was anything but easy when I was in that process. So I would say it is hard, and I really don't believe that there's just not a life balance, right? There's always one ball that's dropping when the other ball is up. I'm either being a really amazing mom and a really amazing wife and a crappy business owner, or I'm being, an amazing business owner and a really crappy mom and wife, right? So like that sort of is, so I'm just trying to kind of keep all the balls kind of in the middle was the way that I looked at it. But when Landon and Bryce were little, very little, and I really do believe that having a strong purpose, like being rooted in why you're doing what you're doing, you have to have that. Otherwise, doubt, fear, insecurity, excuses, they're going to creep in. So for me, I was immersing myself in entrepreneurial, personal development. So I was listening to books like The Compound Effect and The Slight Edge. And so those basic books when I first launched my business were really foundational because they gave me the mindset that nothing happens overnight and that a business is built with discipline and consistency. And so I took that serious. Like I took that advice as the way to follow. And so I knew that if I wanted to build a following, if I wanted to create my voice and have people that trusted me, I needed to show up consistently. So I started to rearrange. So I bought a calendar. That was the first thing I did when I launched my business, because as a stay-at-home mom, you're not on anybody's schedule except for your kids, And so we did. We were like, should we go to the park today? Sure. Should we, grocery shop? Sure. And so I started to create structure where there was no structure before. So I got a calendar. And I started to run the day. So I said, okay, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. This was one of the first things that I did. And so in my boys, they weren't sleeping through the night, but I knew that the only way I was going to build the business was to start carving out some pockets in my day. Yeah. And so I didn't want to be reactive. I didn't like my kids waking me up and then me going, I have to post on social media and I need to respond to those emails. And, and so I was like, well, I'll get up early and I'll do my workout in the morning. And then I'll, do a little bit of business before the kids wake up. And then I felt like I was ready to mom. And so I would have this desk calendar and I would have these blocks. I would block it out. And then I would say, okay, every day we'll be home for nap time. I won't skip their nap. I won't move the nap. I'll create that. Every single day between the hours of like 1 and 3, they will go down for a nap. And so I did that. So noon, we would start the routine. And the minute I'd put them in their cribs or in their bed, I would run down to the kitchen table and I would type as fast as I could until one of them woke up, which before that was like TV time, or I would take a nap, or I'd do laundry, or I was getting dinner ready. And so all of that stuff that I was doing before now was like when they were awake, we were doing laundry together, we were, running the sweeper. And so I would have this pocket and then I would do it usually again at night. So when I was watching TV before, I was now sitting with my laptop doing, an hour at night. So Yeah. So those were some of the things for me that really helped. We're just sort of having these pockets. And then on the weekends when Matt was home from work, then he would get the boys up in the morning and get them moving, and then I would sit in the basement and do a little bit of work. So that was the beginning. Once I started to create some income, I hired a babysitter 2 days a week for 3 hours in the morning so that she would come from like 9 to noon. I would do lunch and do more hours. And so I started that. And then once they started to go to school, that helped. So until they were both in school full time. And now I'm able to work, my job, but I still have this flexibility.
That's awesome. So I love, though, what you were talking about of like just building some guidance to the day, because I feel like even when kids are little, the structure that we introduce to their day actually helps them too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like as a stay-at-home mom, I definitely, because I had 4 boys within like 6 years. And so it was like survival of the fittest for a long time, and you have boys, so you understand the boy life. And I feel like what you just said about carving out those moments that kind of become like anchors in your day, it sounds like that morning time, that nap time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like we can't control the whole day and the whole schedule, and trying to do that will probably make us a little mad and crazy in the head because we can't. It's impossible. But those certain like pillar moments in the day that gave you kind of some anchors sounds like was enough to give you those disciplines into your life and into your schedule that probably steered you towards that consistency that you needed to really keep the ball rolling.
Yeah. And the other thing too is it's about what you do during those pockets of time. So, women a lot of times are like, well, I have this time carved out, and they just sit down and go, what should I do today? And so they scroll social media and they look at everybody else's stories and they check their email and they try to get inspired. And I learned really early on that I needed to actually have a list. So I was like, I'll never open the computer screen or turn on my phone unless I know exactly what I'm going in there for. Yeah, so it became, what are the activities that are going to produce the results that I want? So, even to ask yourself, is what I'm doing the thing that's most important? Is it actually producing? If it's like most of us are running a business, so I have to be doing, we call them IPAs, income producing activities. Mm-hmm. And so I got really, like, even right now, I have this to-do list on my desk, and these are the things I need to get through by the end of the day today, before the kids get off the bus.
Yeah. And I feel like I heard you talk about that in 1 or 2 of your podcasts. I'm sure it probably comes up a few times in income producing activities. And I love that. I noticed that I started experiencing, I feel like knowing yourself is also so important. Like, I'm super relational, and I will easily put the day on hold to go have a coffee date with somebody, especially being a pastor. I'm like, oh, this is important. It's like, they need this. This is still part of what we do. But I noticed that I could go so heavy on meeting the needs of other people and helping friends with their businesses and giving away closet edits as a stylist, that I really wasn't making any forward movement on my personal goals, like learning how to preach better or making digital products that I could maybe sell and monetize, and different things like that. So then when I started structuring my day, where I'm like, I'm just going to give even an hour a day to this priority. But doing that every day, I'm getting a lot more done than when I would sit down and just be under the gun, to try to reach a goal. Right. And so that's what I hear in what you're saying too, is like structuring those priorities in, being consistent with it bears the fruit that you're looking for.
Yes, absolutely. And just knowing what that balance, like you just said it, there's a balance there between the two. I have to build my personal brand, my personal business, my customer base, but I also have to manage and lead the people I do have. And so even within my work day, if I only have 3 hours to devote to my business, it's like 2 of those hours are my personal business and that branding. And then an hour is spent with the people that I need to serve. And so even making sure you have that coveted personal business time versus serving others, that ensures that you aren't getting off balance. And I do gut check myself a lot on that front.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay. So I have this question for you. What are some principles that you have in place that guide and protect, which you've kind of hit on in a little bit, but walk us through like your quality time and the strict business boundaries that you alluded to that help you protect those different responsibilities?
Sure. Okay. So this is the one that women struggle with the most. And every time I'm speaking at an event, this is every hand goes up in the room. And it really is just women are getting so burnt out, especially when they're marketing and using social media to grow a business, right? Because they feel like they can never get away and they're always connected. And women feel that need to respond right away, right? So as soon as something, as soon as a message comes in. And so this has probably been 7 or 8 years I've been doing this now. I do not have the notifications on my phone turned on. So Instagram, I don't know when somebody comments. I don't know when somebody sends me a direct message. I don't know when I have a new follower, unless I go into the app and look at the notifications, right? Yeah. It's the same thing on Facebook. My messenger on Facebook is turned off. So when I'm on my computer, a lot of how I communicate in my business, Facebook, right? So it's Facebook messages back and forth. And so for a long time, I would be in the midst of writing a piece of content. It would be like, ding, beep, and all these boxes are popping up, and I'm over here typing a piece of content, but then I'm answering this message, and before you know it, I'm watching this person's live video. And so I was super unproductive. And so I just turned the chat off, which means just the notifications just go into the messenger. So I would have messenger open or closed. And so then it was like, okay, I'm only going to answer messenger when it's time to do my messages, and turned off the notifications for my phone as well for Facebook and Messenger. Same thing with my email. I don't have emails that are dinging. So when you look at my phone, there, like right now, there's one notification. I guarantee you there are 50 million things that are going on in my social media. And so that alone took away that pressure, because I can remember sitting on the floor doing puzzles with the boys, and my phone would ding, and then I would grab the phone. And so then I would be answering a message, and they would be, wanting me to do the puzzle. And I was always feeling sort of distracted and never really present. So that alone, turning it off, was key, really key. And then there are just these no phone times in our house. So when the boys were little, it was like certain pockets of the day from 9 a.m. to noon, right? Or from 12. It didn't mean I didn't have my phone on me. It just was, I disciplined myself not to open it, not to open the apps, not to go look at the notifications. And so that in dinner time from 5 at night until about 8, it's like I am with my family. I might take a picture. I may post on my stories, but I'm not talking to people for the most part. You will notice these long periods of time where I'm just not around. And I do that intentionally, because if I'm always on, I'm always feeling depleted, and I'm not creative. I'm anxious. I am agitated and irritated. And I've learned that you can build a successful business by setting boundaries. And I think that's something women just don't do. People are still going to purchase from you even if it takes you 8 hours to respond, because you are at work and you have a full-time job, or you're with your kids that day. So I just think that we have to tell people, just like we discipline our kids and we tell them what's right and what's wrong, you have to discipline yourself to say, these are my office hours. And then you have to communicate that to people. So, you have to be okay with that. You have to say, if you have a team you work with, I'm not available during these times. I will. So something that I just started doing is, for a very long time, I worked at night because my kids were little and I was home with them all day. So that was my life. And when my kids when they went to school full time, I still kept that routine of working at night, because I just felt like I had to, and because I'd done it for so long. And now that they're getting older, I don't want to work at night. Actually, now that I'm getting older, I don't want to work like I used to do at night. So I started to tell my team, hey, I'm not doing night calls anymore. My family time is now, like, phone will be done at 5. I may check in randomly if they have practice or, they're playing with a friend, but I'm not available. These are my office hours. And, my inbox doesn't blow up anymore. Or if it does, they're like, I know you're not around tonight, but get to this in the morning. And so I've conditioned my people, my team, even my audience, to know when I'll respond. And it's perfectly okay.
That's so great. Discipline is so important, which I feel like as stay-at-home moms, it can be easy to not realize how undisciplined that we are, because I feel like we're constantly working in the urgent category of life more than the important category. You know what I mean? With little ones. And so I feel like discipline allows us to kind of make that transition from urgent into more important, so we can lead even more peaceful lives. Like you said, you don't like your kids come in and you just like wake up and like the kids waking you up and you're like, ah. And I noticed that about myself too, because especially on a Saturday, if I'm sleeping in and they'll come in, Mom, can you make pancakes? Mom, can we go to Dollar General? Mom, can we do this? Mom, can we do that? And I wake up with like stress already up here because of all the demands. And so I don't necessarily love a 5 a.m. wake up call. You're so brave. But I love the concept where you're like, hey, I'm going to wake up and do what works for me before my kids are up. Right. And that's so huge. And the consistency of doing it, because it's easy to do it for a week. Now, you mentioned here discipline and consistency, but and these are principles that have aided your success as an entrepreneur. And you mentioned discipline and consistency, but you also mentioned belief and hustle when it counts. Can you go into those a little bit more?
Yeah. So, discipline and consistency are key. So just being disciplined to do the business activities you need to do to grow your business, even when you don't feel like it, right? So that is like when the alarm goes off and you made the commitment to work on that project, you get up and you do it. Not because somebody is saying you're going to be fired if you don't do it, but because you know that you made that commitment to yourself. And so that's important, is having discipline. And I find that even is the same with weight loss and nutrition. I have to be disciplined to push play on the workout, even when I don't feel like it, or when I'm tired, or I have to choose to drink the water, over the Diet Coke or whatever, so it's the same thing. And it's the same thing with business. And so it is this discipline of, I'm going to do the hard things because I know they're going to pay off. And then consistency is, you can't be that person that is sometimes on and sometimes off, because that people notice that, right? So even when I was first building my foundation, I wasn't getting a ton of response, but people were watching. They were trying to decide whether Melanie Mitro was legit or if this was just some fad that she was doing. She was just doing this health and fitness, this clean eating because, just because that's what everybody else was doing. But what happened is, because I consistently showed up, not just week 1, not week 2, but week 20, 30, 120, 250, right? I just kept, and that consistency with showing up and sharing and adding value and teaching my audience through social media, that consistency and discipline is what made people go, I'm going to join you. Tell me more. I need to lose the weight, or I want to do what you do. And so, that discipline and consistency have carried me for the past 9 years. But then, what happens is you can kind of take the pendulum and swing it too far. And so hustle when it counts is something that I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way. So I am an all or nothing, not all or nothing, but I am like all on all the time, 24/7. Like, I am a goal getter. I'm going to make it happen. I'm not going to stop until I get what I want. And so unfortunately, I've burned myself out, and in a very unhealthy way. I've talked about that pretty openly on my podcast and on my social, but it to the point where I was actually physically sick, or I was just lacking creativity, or I was resenting the business. And so what I've learned to do is hustle with intention. And so I'll give you a very relevant example. It's the end of February right now. And for the whole month of February, when we were planning our calendar for the month, we knew that this was going to be an insane month. I had multiple speaking engagements, traveling across the country, launching a course, still managing all of the customers and the team that we do have. And so there was like teeny tiny bit of downtime that I was going to have. But I knew come the 28th of February, I was going to be able to breathe. And so I hustled. I just knew it was going to stink, but I was willing to do it because I knew what the payoff would be. I knew what it was going to do for the business. But then I intentionally rest. Right. So even yesterday, I slept for an hour and a half on the couch before the kids came home. Right. This weekend, I'm like, I will sleep in. I have brunch planned with my mom. So it's really important that you hustle when it matters. Like, you don't make excuses for your goals, but then you also make sure you rest. And so that just has allowed me to make sure that I'm always creative and I'm always somewhat balanced and I'm protecting my energy. And I feel like I'm serving myself while growing my business too.
So hustle when it counts. Oh, I love your honesty though about how you're like, hey, I burned out. Are you an Enneagram 3?
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, so am I. So I have hit burnout too. And getting all the things done is, of course, the constant temptation. But I love how you're like, hey, you just got to learn. And I love the beauty of the fact that we get to learn by making mistakes. I feel like sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves as women, as mothers, because we want to do things right. We want to raise our kids right. We want to do our business right. We want to make a difference. And the fact of the matter is we're going to learn more from when we make mistakes than from when we do it right. And so I love that you're transparent about that because I think everybody can identify with it to some degree. Okay, so I want to kind of get to your course and your planner that you have launched. Now, it sounds like they're two different things, so maybe let the listeners know, because I'd love for them, if they are listening to the feedback you're giving and hearing all of the expertise that you're offering, I want them to go check out your resources. And I know that you've got your podcast. They can follow you on Instagram. It sounds like you have a course they can check out, and then the planner, which is such a practical tool. So give us the scoop on all that.
So we did launch, so in 2019, so that would have been a little over a year ago, we launched Chic Influencer and we launched our community. So I get the honor of working with other women that are either getting ready to launch a business or own a business. And we have a lot of women who own Etsy shops or Shopify sites or are small business owners, boutique owners or online businesses as well. And we do have some direct sales in there, but we really help women with the process of launching, growing, scaling, troubleshooting things that come up in building a business. So we have this online community, but we launched a social media planner because a lot of women who are trying to create a presence on social struggle with, how do I actually grow my ideal audience? And let's face it, TV advertisements and newspaper and infomercials, really, that's not where people spend their time anymore. So, even big corporations, you see everybody running ads and showing up and having this presence on the platform. And my business partner, Katie, and myself, she was a 7th grade literature teacher, and she's really good at storytelling, and I'm really good at strategy. So we created this planner that teaches people how to storytell in a very strategic way on social media, but it's a planner to actually plan out your content. You look at your analytics, you analyze what's working and what's not. And so we really help women find their voice. So we launched that in December, and it is amazing. Like, I can't believe the overwhelming positive response that we've gotten and how it's transforming people's businesses. And then we also just yesterday actually announced our course. So Katie and I just have this ability to strategize. Okay, you want to launch a podcast? Here's how you do it. You need to have a group. You need to have, a launch team. You need to have an email list. This is your way you post about it. And so we created an entire course that teaches people how to launch a product, a course, an idea, a business, an event. And we basically took everything from the past, 9 years that we have done and put it into a course that people can buy. And then they can actually implement it based on their product, service, or business model that they have. So that is so fun. We love it. That's something else that we enjoy doing, is just the marketing side of it. So we do tons of stuff. You have to check us out at chicinfluencer.com. That's where everything is at. You can follow my account, Melanie Mitro, on Instagram and Facebook too. So, and then the Chic Influencer page. So yeah, we're out there doing it, and we're helping people, and it's so much fun. And I love what it's like teaching my boys about just, again, that discipline and consistency, following your passion, doing what you love. Yeah. And so it's been a fun journey.
I love that. And I love that you put together things that are so practical, like as a creative, and I'm sure there's other creatives that deal with this. I will get the vision, I will get the plan, but when it comes to figuring out how to create step-by-step process to get there, I swear my brain short circuits. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to go. Someone actually, when I found your podcast, I had been talking to the Lord and I was like, Lord, I need someone who can like hold my hand and that help me figure out how to make this happen. And then I found your podcast and then we started chatting on Instagram and I was like, okay, maybe this woman has tools I need, you know?
Yeah.
So I was super excited because that's literally like a lot of times, unless you're super balanced or you put a lot of years into trial and error, you're going to be on one side or the other typically, you know what I mean, of creative or logical without a whole lot of ideas, you know? And so I love that you guys have put this together. I'm planning on getting your planner. I just hadn't bought it yet. And so I'm totally planning on getting it. Okay, so last thought, now that you shared so many great strategic ideas, what is one life hack that has like saved your life in the most practical sense? What's a life hack?
Oh my gosh, I love it. So this is like my favorite like life hack is you have to get help, right? So women try to do it all and think they can do it all, right? So the most important thing, and I remember the moment where I was like, I need help. I can't do it anymore. I was upstairs in our master bedroom and I was cleaning the bathroom and the boys were in the cul-de-sac with my husband and they were playing kickball. And I just like had a scrub brush in my hand and I was like, we need help. Like there's on Sunday afternoon, it's beautiful outside. I'm working like a dog all the time. And now I'm cleaning the house. And so I had said to my husband, like, we really need some help. And so it was at that point where we sat down and we did hire, somebody to help clean the house twice a month. And my husband and I decided that, okay, let's share some of the responsibilities because you are building this business too. And so he would cook on Tuesdays and Thursdays and I would cook Monday, Wednesday, Friday dinner. And so we began to divide and conquer. So I think the most important thing is not being afraid to ask for help. And it can be simple things like a cleaning lady, like making that investment or just splitting up the responsibilities. But for us, I'm not just the stay-at-home mom anymore. That's my sole responsibility. We're both creating income and we have to learn to share those responsibilities. And that really worked well for us.
That's so good. You know how many times I have thought to myself lately, I would love to have someone come in and clean my house. I just need to pay someone to do it. Thankfully, my 4 boys are old enough. They all do chores. And so the whole house can get clean in like an hour if they're at work or if they're putting their hands to work. Does your husband help with the business or does he work independently?
So he left his full-time job. It's going to be 5 years in May. In April or May. So when the boys were little, right? So 5 years ago, he was doing he started to do preschool drop off and pick up, and so he didn't really help with the business because the kids were so little. So I was doing a lot of that, but he's kind of transitioned. So he does all of our financials, does all of our trips. We do a lot of things like team wide. And he just really manages the financial side and the back end. And he does do a lot of the day-to-day stuff, the grocery shopping, just the upkeep, the laundry, just kind of our management. And so then because I really do this is our business right now. So yeah, I mean, we flipped roles completely. He worked full-time corporate, for a long time. He worked for Heinz. He was in their procurement department for a very long time. So yeah, it's been a crazy role reversal that we've had. He'll always joke man, you're not the woman that I married, right? I was the stay-at-home mom and here I am the, breadwinner of the family. So yeah, it's kind of wild how that all flipped.
That is so wild. Now, I thought I saw that you had made a post on Instagram that when you first had the idea of starting a business, he wasn't totally on board with the vision that you had and that you had to kind of prove oh no, I'm making this happen. Yeah. Was that, because sometimes I think that's a real conversation, between couples, him being oh, is this just another fad? Are you going to grow out of this in 2 months? So tell us how that kind of worked its way out.
Yeah, he did not support the business whatsoever. He thought, oh, these things don't ever work, right? People don't really succeed at building their own businesses, especially online, virtual, and direct sales too. So, neither one of us knew anybody that was super successful in direct sales. So I Again, I'm very stubborn. And I was even saying this to my business partner the other day. We were driving down the highway. We were at an interview, and I said, Katie, I always get what I want. I was like, not in a bad way, but like when it comes to my husband, I will wear him down, right? But I will prove to him, I'm not nagging, but that's the way that I did the business, right? So I knew if I wanted Matt's support, I was going to have to show him the money. And that meant that I was going to have to not play around. I wasn't going to waste our time. I wasn't going to waste our money. I was going to make sure that I was doing my part to grow the business. And so I had to prove it, right? I just didn't have automatic credibility with him. So I did. He watched me get up early, up late, work crafts, do my best, even though it wasn't always pretty. But when the money started to come in and I was having success, it was like I got a little bit more credibility. And even though I was working way more than I was getting paid at the beginning, it started to make that transition. But then I had to prove that it was viable. I had to prove that there was longevity. I had to show him that I could scale and grow. And so there was just this element of, just like you have to prove yourself to your audience on social media, you have to prove yourself to your loved ones. And so for me, it was not being pushy. It wasn't throwing in digs. I was very respectful. But I never go like, see, I told you so, or, I don't rub it in his face. And so for me, it was just like, I'll show you. Let me just prove to you by my actions. And I also try to include him. So Matt's strong suit is financial. So I would ask him, can you make me projections? Can you help me understand the numbers? Can you run these reports? And I would ask him for advice because he did work in corporate. He did manage people. So we would have that discussion of how to work with people. So I involved him and made him feel part of it. But I let him sort of like work through his emotions and how he was feeling, because it was a shift of the way we had originally planned to live our lives, So, but communication is everything, right? Like it doesn't matter if you are running a business or not, just being, married, you have to communicate. When you throw kids in, it's even crazier. So just learning how to play on each other's strengths and just really give and take, a lot of give and take.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, I thank you so much for taking out the time to share with all of us. I know you run a tight schedule, so I don't want to eat up past 11
okay.
But thank you so much for coming on here and for sharing with all my listeners. And again, you guys, if any of you want to check out her resources, go look up Melanie Mitro on Instagram, on Facebook, Chic Influencer. Look up her course, look up her planner, and if nothing else, you'll see her in my posts as well. And so thank you so much for doing this and for just sharing your journey and continuing to invest into people the way that you have.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. For those of you who've rated or shared this podcast on social media, thank you. Reading your comments and reviews always means so much to me. Listen, let's stay connected. Come follow me on Instagram at Java with Jen, where you can follow the latest and say hey. It's a really great way to stay in touch. Many of you have also asked how you can support the show. You can make donations through the Anchor app or on Patreon, or of course by sharing, rating, and reviewing on social media and iTunes as well. Thank you to each of you for your ongoing support. Your heartfelt feedback always reminds me why I do this. Until next time, remember, you've got this, and God's got you.